I am so thrilled to be back for another season of I almost said the Ray Bunch, but it's not. It's Ray2Go show. Yep. New season, new name, new platform, but same old faces. Like we've got BL, we have Jess, we've got Randy, and we have Scott back with us. And someone's got a thing. That's probably me. So 1 second here, and I'll change that. Okay, guys, say hi, and I'll fix this. I'll fix the echo.
We're all back. Hello to everyone.
We are back. Yep.
It's good.
You know what? I didn't hear the echo. Did anybody else?
Nah.
Okay. Yeah. So Ray2Go. That is the coolest name change I think I have experienced in the near past. It's a great next evolution.
Yeah, I'll echo that. I mean, Ray's put some great thought in it, and had a lot of conversation about his branding, his name change, and everything moving forward. Looks fantastic to me, and that it's fitting with the world that we work in. Everything's moving forward, changing constantly. So it's a very fitting name.
Yep. And not a complete change. You know, I know sometimes people feel like the only way to evolve is to have like a makeover where it's this drastic change. And I'm sure, you know, BL, I'm pretty sure you probably have a big opinion about this, but I'm like, why do you need big drastic changes? Sometimes it's those little subtle things that have the biggest impact.
Well, actually, I don't have a big opinion about that. How about that?
Okay, well, let's put that down in the history books. BL did not have a big opinion to share with us. And thanks, guys, for your patience, because I just realized I had a hidden browser tab somewhere, and I was like double talking to myself, which I do.
It was most likely the Crowdcast, because that's what happens.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Good to know. See, this is kind of like a dress rehearsal. This is our first time back, and we're the first time we're using Crowdcast on the show, so expect some surprises. So hope you're visiting. You can visit us on Crowdcast directly. The link there is on the Google Plus page. Plus is all over the place on Twitter and on Facebook. Also, you can just go to my website, rayhills.com/Ray2Go, and watch us there and interact, because what I love about Crowdcast is that there's so many opportunities to share things. You've got the question area just below me on the far left. There's questions. If you have a question in the show that you would like to ask, those questions get voted up. So if there's a question that everybody wants answered, you'll vote it up, and we'll see it, and we'll answer that. Next to that, our poll, which is a poll I put together earlier, asking some, dumb questions like, are you a marketer? Have you seen the Ray Bunch before, etc. And on the far right, if you don't see a column there with a whole bunch of people talking, there's a little bubble thing, speech bubble on the top. You click on that, and you'll see a comment section, and there you can just say, talk to each other, say hi, leave comments for us, and we'll keep an eye on that during the show. So now that we're all back, and I'm thrilled, we were so busy in the green room catching up on what's happened in the summer and stuff, we didn't do any show notes. So we're gonna be improvising today, but not so much improvising, because I do have a topic and we do have things to talk about, and that thing is the humanization of brands. What's human marketing? So I've got 3 questions, and funny enough, the 3 questions that are in the Crowdcast. And the first one is, I'm going to ask it right here, is what is human digital marketing? So before we go into what that is, I'm going to ask each of the panelists, what do they think that means? So let's start with BL. BL, what do you think?
Well, you have to go right back to 1999 to the Clue Train Manifesto, which stated that there is no market for messages. There is no market for corporate speak, and that until companies start to speak in a human voice, nobody's going to listen. So to me, human marketing is when companies are not broadcasting, are interacting, are following the 12-to-1 rule of social media, which is 12 times you engage and interact and educate and assist and respond, and 1 time you promote yourself. And I see still to this day so many brands that are just, and then we did this, and then we had a banana for lunch, and then we did that, and then we had coffee. I mean, who cares? And it's a matter of responding to issues, mentions, but more than that, making it clear that you're not a robo poster.
Good. Jess, have something to reply to that? What do you think human marketing is?
I recently heard a term called human scale. And one of the things that I recognize brands in general doing, or companies or organizations, is that they are sharing everything with everybody. It would be like having a 10-acre yard and you have a little push mower, or better yet, one of those little rotary motors with just a blade. How are you going to do that? And is that going to become overwhelming? Yes. So when I think of human marketing, I think of human scale. The one person or the one group of people with a specific interest that wants a specific message, and being able to customize who's being talked to where to really leverage the opportunity of everything BL just said.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I would say, go ahead, Scott.
Well, I'll jump in and then you can wrap it up, Randy. Thanks. And that is that it used to. I mean, we all like doing business with people that we like to do business with. I mean, that's throughout the history of mankind, except for after the Industrial Revolution and into the 1950s through the end of the century. A lot of companies were able to fake it because of Madison Avenue, and they got the psychology of consumerism and things like that. And now social media has changed that entirely. So it is very difficult to fake it anymore in terms of being the sort of company, genuine company, that people like to do business with. So companies that were really terrific in the past, they can probably adapt pretty easily to social media if they're enlightened. And those companies that are really pretty crummy inside for whatever reason, they don't trust their employees or whatnot, then they'll have to change internally and then go to social media, or they will have to increasingly figure out how to fake it on the outside. And there's one exception to that, and that is companies that compete on price. And if you're competing on price, people don't care what type of company you are, just as long as you give a better deal.
Well, hold on to that thought, because that's going to play into our next question very directly. So I'm going to go to Randy first before we do that. Randy? What's your definition of a human marketing?
I'm gonna sum what everybody just said, because I totally agree with everything that was just shared. But I'm going to go back to the simple adage of put yourself into the customer's shoes. Okay, and I mean really do that. Okay, we don't all wear the same size shoes. We don't wear the same type of shoes. They're all different. So you've got to think of your customers in that way. That's humanizing a brand.
I think, though, that there's something that we have to distinguish here. You take a company that has 400,000 employees and ask it to speak in a human voice. That's a very different request than taking a company that has 50 or 500 or 200 employees or 10. So is this a matter of scale? I don't know the answer. I'm curious about what you all think.
Well, let me add this to combat that, not to combat that, but to carry on that conversation. I personally worked in a corporation with 18,000 employees, and when I left that corporation and took an early retirement from it, we were very much putting ourselves in the customer's shoes. We were very much identifying one-on-one with those customers. An old conservative company which is acting very progressive. So yeah, I mean it depends on that. One customer can sink a big corporation, especially today. We've seen it happen unjustified. But with the impact of social media and the jump-on communities that we have nowadays, it's very important that you're listening.
Yeah, are we talking about? Can I just differentiate between being a human marketing and customer service? I mean, yes, we have to think of the customer and be empathetic and walk in their shoes, as it were. But is that the same thing as a business putting a human face out front? And I think it goes back to what BL was saying. I mean, I think it definitely matters whether you have, if you have a 20 staff or you have a multinational company. It's going to be more challenging to put a human face on this huge monster. But
you're right.
why should we even? But why should we? I mean, why? this is relatively new, right? With social media technology, that we even think about putting a human face to things. Usually, it's you go to a company, you go there for a product or service. Period. The closest thing you got to a person was maybe if you went to the store to the customer service desk or to a clerk. But now we're the buzz is that everybody should be it's human to human. But is that just a cliche? Because I find a lot of clients have a lot of problem with that. They don't know how to do that. They don't even know why they should do that. So why do brands need to have a human?
If you think of Apple, Steve Jobs, right? But the brand was the Apple, right? The culture was the brand. Everything was Apple. Everything. So everybody in that Apple community, the workers, the people that made the product, the people that marketed the product, the people in the back room, everybody lived Apple and were loyal to that. So it's first of all, if you don't have that kind of culture where you're a 20-person shop or an 18,000-person shop,
but Apple doesn't use social media.
Oh, I'm not talking about social.
No, I don't think we are. And I would add to that.
It's when I said put yourself in the customer's shoes. We all don't wear the same shoes. Not everybody.
Well, I do think Ray is right. We have to distinguish between a company speaking in a human voice and customer service, because customer service has a great deal to do with monitoring software, with social relationship monitoring platforms like BrandWatch and Sprinkler, and making sure that you're paying attention to when somebody's asking a question about customer service. But I think there is a difference in terms of the way that a company, if all you see are press release headlines and you never see a human sentence from a company, that's not speaking in a human voice, even if you're handling customer service on a one-to-one basis.
Okay.
And you don't think Apple in the back room is monitoring what's being said about their brand everywhere?
I'm sure they are.
It is culture, and this is, I think, a very interesting distinction that I hear BL talking about on one side and Randy talking about on the other, directly related to your question, Ray, and that is when there is a strong mission and the people coming together in a company, whether 1, 100, 1,000, 100,000, 500,000 or more, this could even be communities. When people come together and they all believe in that mission, something happens. And when they're communicating to each other and how they interact with each other, there's a humanness to it, regardless of the size of the brand. Now, how you get there and how you implement that is it's a different set of problems for each business because of the different shoe sizes that everybody wears, because of the different industries, because of the size and the scope, and how the leaders in an organization choose to either uphold that mission and support it wholeheartedly, or inadvertently or knowingly undermine that mission, which makes it a place that's hard to have the cohesiveness that people can stand with when they're doing their job, or interact or pick up when they're interacting with an organization.
But say just they manage to have that culture, they build that internally. How does that project it outside the company to the people interacting with the company? Because I think we're still stuck on the company and how it operates, whether it's customer service, whether it's internal social culture, whatever. But what I'm trying to refer to in human marketing is the fact that people, when they approach a company, like when you go to a website, so many websites to go to now, I can't find a person or a face on that website. Even the contact me is a contact form. There's nobody there to contact. So how can I feel that I'm engaging with a human being at some point?
There's a conversation going on in Crowdcast right now about big brands use social as listening tools, and they're terrible about that. And it seems to be focused on social. Okay, I'm telling you that big brands, little brands, whatever, need to be where their customers are.
Yes.
A little 20-person shop working in Statesboro, Georgia, probably has a shitty presence on social media, but they have a wonderful presence inside the community that they live in. Now, some of their customers might be on Twitter, they might be on a local chat board or something like that, but that's being real and where you need to operate. Now, if you're a 20-person shop and you're working globally, then you need a bigger footprint and you need to stretch out there. But that's the conversation. If you're a major brand, Coca-Cola, you can't say that Coca-Cola is a shitty customer service company. You can't say that. Now, do they fail? Yeah, they fail all the time. but they have winners all the time too. They're just too big to even discuss in the same realm as a 20-person shop.
Well,
Right.
but I think you're right about that. That there is a distinction between a company with, 500,000 employees and a 20-person shop. But the question in the bigger companies becomes who gets access to social media. And I remember 15 years ago telling companies like everyone has access to social media in their pocket on their phone. There is no way that you can keep your employees off social media. So therefore, you have to train them. You have to let them know the consequences of social media. When I write social media policies for companies, rule number one is don't forget you have a day job. And, but who gets to be the voice? Who gets to interact? And do they identify themselves as an employee of the company? 99 out of 100 times they do not, and they should.
That
So
segues perfectly into the next question. Sorry to jump ahead because I want to sort of cover this in the time that's remaining. And why do brands need to be human? And I want to point out there's an article in I think it was Mark Schaefer wrote an article. I think it was called "Why Do Brands Personal Brand or Company Brand?" And he lists some Edelman report that said that there's several interesting stats from which Edelman reports that an employee advocate is 2 times more trusted than a CEO. On average, 92% of employees' Twitter network will be new exposure for the brand. Brand messages are reshared 24 times more frequently when distributed by employees versus a company. And Weber Shandwick found that 98% of employees use at least one social media site for personal use, of which 50% are already posting about their company. And this speaks to what you're saying, BL. And that's what I want to get back to when we're talking about human marketing, is that whether you're Coke or not, there are touch points that people have with the company. And my point is that does that touch point involve a human being or a voicemail system or a contact form, that type of thing?
Okay, if I'm working for Delta Airlines, and I'm the ticket agent at the Atlanta Hartsville Airport, and I have a circle of friends. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, right? And somebody's having a beef with Delta. They screwed them out of a ticket price, they kicked them off a plane, they did whatever. That community probably going to reach out to me. That person, if I know them, right, if they're in my community, might reach out to me. I better be Delta. That goes back to the culture that I was talking about. Everybody in that should have that culture attitude towards your brand. It comes from within.
The right people on the bus. And that comes down to defining what do words mean in an organization for the purpose of delivering the product or service. Because as human as we are, we're in business for commerce, and we can't forget that in here. And I feel like one of the things we're talking around is, well, we're asking people for money. We want to give people the best price. We want to compete in our market space. We want to do all of these things and do them well and serve the customer. But are the customers telling us that they want less contact so they can have a better price, as one example? Or are they telling us they want a better price, but they're actually saying, if this feature did this, or here's the problem I'm actually using your product to solve, maybe there's a way around that. And it goes back to, yes, we've got to listen, but it comes down to what do the words mean in our organization? So how can we define the problems we have to best decide what's a human interaction for us in our marketplace for the customers that we serve?
I think our old friend Vivek sums it up really well. There are no absolute truths, right? So and that goes back to not everybody sees it in black and white. Not everybody sees it in red and black. You got to be all things. And as a company, 20-person company, you've got to have, as a leader of that 20-person company, you've got to embrace every one of those personalities in that 19-employee thing that you've got. You've got to understand them. You've got to love them. You've got to nurture them. You've got to make them be part of that family brand. So they're happy. You pay attention to whatever the work environment's like, whatever the pay scale needs to be, as long as you're doing it right and making money for yourself and the brand, but including them. So they become the champions of your brand. And once they become that, their message is going to be positive in that, and then they can go about their life. I mean, I'm not talking about that every time they're on Twitter they have to be talking about ABC marketing company. They need to be themselves. But if they interact with somebody, they need to be ABC marketing representative in the background as a positive front. That's just being wherever it is.
That brings up the question of who has access to speaking for the company.
You can't close that off.
Everybody.
You cannot, that cow left the barn a long time
Right,
ago.
exactly.
So
It's
I've
got
got
to
a
be
question.
everybody.
Okay, Scott, go ahead.
So what happens if you're a terrible, crummy company? I used to work for a cable company, and we all love to hate the cable company. I don't think that the major cable companies, at least in the United States, have changed quite that much. Don't they have to change internally before they can turn around and let their employees be the loyal, supportive, voice?
I think a company that is described as you just described it, Scott, is either fixing to have a new CEO or fixing to be on the sold block to Time Warner or somebody else that might see that and take advantage of that.
What you're predicting is that when the dust settles, the telecommunications companies are going to be internally really wonderful to the point where their employees will become brand ambassadors.
But I think the dust is always going to be settling. I mean, I think there's always going to be turmoil.
Well, I think it goes back to the very early days of social media, right? I mean, you have to be social, to do social, and a lot of companies still aren't social. And I want to go to the last question, and actually I'm going to go to Crowdcast for this so I can start answering. Because funny, Crowdcast is cool because when you answer a question and someone watches in replay, it automatically goes to that point in the video. Isn't that cool? So what I want to get to is basically the reason I did this show. Part of the reason, the reason I went to social media marketing because I saw a lot of promise in social media for doing exactly what we're talking about, humanizing brands. Unfortunately, that's taking a lot longer time than I anticipated. But one of the articles I read just recently is from a friend of ours who actually is in the audience, Robert Caruso. So
Hi, Robert.
He wrote an article called 9 Characteristics of Human Not Automated Social Media Marketing, and lists 9 of the things that you can do to personalize your brand. And now some of them are obvious, like a personal profile, a personal photo, and a bio. But I think all of the 9 points he lists all have to do with empathy, and we talked about empathy before, about putting yourself in your customer's shoes. And he lists be responsive, be grateful, show interest, be selfless, have a conversation, not a monologue, be relevant, and keep it real. And whether you define that as authenticity or vulnerability or honesty, that's up to you. But keeping it real. Now that's a challenge for companies, right? Because you have this tension between who you are as a company, that entity, and the people that you put in place to interact with your customers and sell your products and sell your services. And I think it all comes down to trust. So I'll throw that out there.
Well,
I think it comes down to money.
Yeah, I was going to say it gets very easy to beat up on a company such as Time Warner or Delta Airlines, these big companies. Like, it's very easy for some small bloke sitting with a Twitter account or a Facebook account to say, hey, they've got lousy. We've all experienced that. Sure, they got lousy.
Yeah, but Randy,
but it's attrition. But it comes down to dollars. I mean, you lose a few, but especially somebody like that's in a controlled marketplace, they're going to dominate the play. And yeah, are they taking steps to try to do it better? Probably not. But it comes down to making money. You're going to lose.
But when you look at the list of the most hated companies in America, Time Warner is in the top 3. People detest that company. It doesn't matter what they say or what they do.
They're a Fortune 500 company.
So the question, it does all come down to money.
Yes.
And it comes down to choices, and but everybody.
I also think there's another element. It comes down to guiding. One of the things about having empathy is to recognize other people are struggling. That doesn't mean the company or the brand or the person in a role has to solve that problem. How's that for a little craziness? Yes, we can provide customer service, but sometimes the problems aren't solvable. And to be empathetic and help them find their way not with my product or not with your product is the guiding role that can differentiate, are we carrying out our mission? Are we living the culture we want? And are we serving the people we can? And when we can't, are we helping them get the solution they need?
So if you've got a company like that is struggling and the top-down culture is failing at instilling the values of the brand in all those below them, at some point in time, the stock price is going to suffer or the sales are going to suffer, and the board of directors is going to say it's time for a change, or it's time to put this thing up and somebody come in here and take us over. That's
exactly what happens with Time Warner.
It's the same thing with a 20-person company, because people won't buy from you.
Go ahead, Scott.
Well, I'll just jump in there. There's another solution as well, and that's K Street. So you have lobbyists in terms of telecommunications and others, where if you align the marketplace in a particular way, semi-monopolistic by law, then you can ignore all sorts of things, because at the end of the day, you're going to either choose from this bad actor or that bad actor, and you don't have any choice other than that.
Exactly.
And then Congress goes along with that, and that's why we've got everyone who now hates even more than the telecommunications industry. They hate Congress. They hate government.
That's a good analogy, I suppose, because I was going to say, speaking of Time Warner and stuff, I mean, it's not just money. It's the fact that they're huge. They're monopolistic almost, and you don't have that much choice. So do they really care whether they're reaching out as human beings to their clients?
They don't have to.
In New York they do. In New York they have so much competition that they have to act like human beings. They have to give us a 1 hour window, etc., etc.
You're exactly right, but in a lot of areas you don't have that competition.
Yeah.
The same thing with utility companies. I mean, that is the point, right? The thing that people like Time Warner or communication companies, utility companies need to do and be forward thinking is, when storms come through or something like that, and you've got a massive loss of your product because of something, right? How is that customer base going to react to you? So you got to be doing this proactive stuff beforehand to say, hey, I think they're an okay company. A lot of people fail at that.
That the other side of human marketing is a customer. And we, as consumers, as much as we, as being part of an organization, the customer side also has a responsibility. We've got to, in general, I'm not going to say we've got to. There's a lot of whining by consumers. There's a lot of, you're going to do it for me because I'm the customer and I'm always right. And I have to tell you, when people want to give you a good product, but you're always right and you're not in their industry, no offense, but you're not always right. I love you. I'm a customer. I've just started to realize that in my own right. I am not always right as a customer. So understanding that somebody really wants to guide you, given the chance, if we can take a step back to have a conversation instead of demands.
How often do you suppose that happens?
Well, I think it needed to be said, because as crazy as it is, all relationships are two-sided, and if relationships are one-sided or demanding, you end up with these dynamics that make it hard to move forward, that make it hard for consumers that are really disgruntled to move forward. But from anywhere within an organization, it's harder to get change as well.
See, pre-internet,
it's an economy of scale, BL. It's an economy of scale, depending on the size of the company you are. I mean, you're going to lose some. You just weigh it out and see what it is. And it's like we said, I mean, it is about money. And if anybody tells you it's not about money.
Well, of course it's the money. And I wanted before, because we only have a couple minutes, actually less than a couple minutes left, Kitty mentioned something in the comments that she's managed a lot of culture change projects, and it's a massive task, money and emotion-wise, for all that involved. And I agree. And I'm going to throw this at you guys and everybody that's watching, is that, do you know of a case where a company actually changed their culture, became more human, reached out, enabled their employees to be advocates, and it actually proved to improve the bottom line?
Dell.
Starbucks.
Dell had to. Dell was going to go out of business, and at one point, Michael Dell had to come back in and take over his company because his company had indeed gone to hell, and everybody had called him on it, including me. So they gave everybody in that company a voice, and they said, we want everybody, to respond to customers, and here's what we're doing. And they started blogging, and they started communities, and it did change the culture, and it did change the way people viewed it. It was, in that case, I believe, too late. They waited too long. But, they did change.
Scott?
Starbucks comes to mind, and also Kaiser Health has a wonderful social media presence where they allow regional centers for social media, but then they train and they monitor. They just do it absolutely right.
Okay. Anyone else before we sign off? Because it's
Best Buy.
Best
Yeah,
Buy.
Best Buy is in the middle of it, and I was
That's the
going to say
Geek
Dell.
Squad people?
Yeah, yeah. With
Yeah.
15,000 people on social media and all of them having a voice, and that totally changed the way people viewed the
But
company.
it took them, how long did it take them? It took them 3 or 4 years to get to that point.
Yeah,
So
that's
the
the
change
point.
is not instantaneous.
And
If
that
you
won't
tell
be,
you-
and that won't be around 2 years from now.
Okay, guys, we're going to sign off, and before I do, we're running a little bit of time, and I have to edit the beginning anyway because I screwed that up. So if anybody wants to sign off with something, a suggestion, or send someone to some place for more information on this topic before we go.
I would.
Okay?
I would like to send people to Wikipedia to the link about the Clue Train Manifesto, which is the beginning of the entire customer revolution. It's from 1999, and if you haven't read it, you don't belong on the internet.
I have one. The book called Simple that our very own BL was quoted in talks about the fact that we tend to make things more complicated and how hard it is to make things simple, and defining the problem is a great start to figuring out what the next steps would be to find the best solutions for them.
Thanks very much, Jess. Anyone else?
I have one. I'd just like to say, Ray, it's good to be back in the saddle with you and back at the lunch table. And I've enjoyed my summer vacation. I look forward to picking up these talks again.
Oh, thanks. It was fun. As I said before the show, we're having so much fun catching up that we didn't do any show notes as it might seem. Scott?
And what Randy said, as well as BL and Jess. That's my
Thanks, Scott. So listen, guys. Thanks so much. It was so much fun, as Randy says, getting back in the saddle. I want to, first of all, great conversation here in the comment section, guys. Thanks so much. What's cool about Crowdcast is you can always go back either to my site or the Crowdcast site and keep on talking to each other and interacting, leave questions. I mean, I'll be checking regularly. So next week, our show is going to be, is social selling an oxymoron? We're going to talk about the whole social selling thing, and every time I read those two words together, I cringe a little bit. So thanks very much. Enjoy the rest of the day, and join us next week for episode 2 of
Wait. What about the blab?
Oh my God! Thank you very much. I forgot. Thanks. Yeah, we're having a post-show blab at 1 o'clock. So as soon as we get it up, join us and blab. Let's have a chat about the show, about the topic, about you, whatever. Take care.
Where will they find the link?
Oh Lord. Thank God I got a floor director, right? You can go to blab.im, I believe, /Ray Hiltz. Also, the link is on the Crowdcast page, and it's also on the Google Plus event page. How's that? Y'all okay to go?
Perfect.
Thanks. Take care. See you guys next week. Bye-bye.